Morning, everyone. It's the first thing to underline today that Russia is and will remain direct military threat to NATO, and it will remain as this after the ceasefire or after the peace that will be achieved in Ukraine one day. And that is why we have to be serious and be prepared as NATO, as an alliance, for this, to meet this threat. Even today, we are, as the NATO, under attack with the different forms of the hybrid activities from Russia and its accomplice, Belarus. That is the GPS, jamming and spoofing. These are meteorological balloons that are now interrupting our civil aviation and make the real danger to our critical infrastructure. We have to address it. We have to address it with the strong and resolved measures to increase our air defense and also the awareness of what is happening in a very neighborhood of ours. Our decisions that we made in the Hague summit have to be implemented fast and faster than we pledged, faster than 2035, and Lithuania in this leads by example. So this year we have the 4% of our GDP spending on defense. Next year we will have 5.4% of our GDP dedicated for the defense. And we do it with the very clear goal in our mind, to be prepared with our armed forces, to develop the division in our national land forces, and also to prepare the critical infrastructure, host nation support infrastructure that is needed for our allies. This is our approach. And I'm really here today hoping to hear the same from our allies, from the countries around the table, that they are doing also the same. Speed up with the defense spending. This is very much needed, because otherwise we will be tested with what we have committed, and we want to avoid this. We have to continue with our support to Ukraine. What changed during this half a year from the last foreign ministerial meeting till today, we see that Europe mobilized and collected itself and had provided more resources that are needed to Ukraine with the Pearl mechanism. We see that United States are engaged in the process. They put the diplomatic efforts to achieve the long-lasting peace. What hasn't changed during this half a year, that was Russia's position. They're absolutely not interested in neither ceasefire nor peace agreement, and they continue to do what they're doing. So for us, this is the reason to prepare the finances for the next year. And in doing this, we have to understand the needs of Ukraine. That's more than 50 billion euros that they need. And we also have to understand that we have to share the burden. We cannot proceed like it is right now on the shoulders of Nordic Baltic countries, Germany, Poland, some of the others. We have to share it across the alliance. And that will be my message today to allies. We have to get serious with the planning, and we cannot leave Ukraine where they are right now. And, yeah, please.
Doesn't going negotiation talks even make sense just because Russia continued to refuse all of the compromises, all of the proposals? So what's next?
We have to do what we are doing right now. Prepare ourselves and provide support to Ukraine. And we have to plan for the multi-years to come, as Lithuania did. We committed for 10 years. 0.25% for 10 years of our GDP will be provided for security and defense needs of Ukraine. If all the European nations will do this, that will be enough for Ukraine's defense efforts. So this is the formula that we are suggesting and proposing. Yes, we see that the efforts of United States are really constant, but we have also to admit that Russia is not meeting them with any flexibility. And what they're trying to do is trying to convince the international community that it's okay to break the fundamental principles. And it's not okay with us. Territorial integrity, sovereignty, those are the very, very basic things that protects us all. If we will recognize the territorial gains of Russia, that would kill the international law immediately. And then it would mean that there will be more aggression and there will be even more threats to the neighborhood of Russia and actually elsewhere.
Yesterday, President Putin was threatening Europe with war again. What stands behind these threats now, and how Europe should react to this new rhetoric once again?
He is projecting his readiness to get involved into the larger conflict with NATO. And these are two things. One thing, of course, we have to divide by 2 and then by 10 when we listen to him. Because, you know, one reason that is, of course, propaganda and it's intimidation of us. On the other hand, we have to be also serious about the words. We heard his demands in 2021, what he wants from NATO, infrastructure to be moved out from the so-called new member states, and then also Americans with all the assets out from Europe. Now he's saying that he is getting ready to war if we want this. For us, this is a message to get our readiness in place. So it's not only capabilities, but it's also readiness, if it is needed to do it even today. So that would be very good, another reason to discuss where we are, what concerns NATO capability targets today in our discussion. I wouldn't fall into this trap.
How important is it that the US will consult with European allies in peace negotiations? And do you have the impression that this is being actually done enough?
Europeans has to be at the table when we are talking European security. That is absolutely principal thing. And we cannot discuss the future of the European security architecture without Europe. Of course, we know what Russia would love to see as the European security structure, but that would be against our basic security interests. We have to be at the table, because this is our say. And at the end of the day, we are putting a lot of money into it and a lot of political efforts. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. NATO is at the heart of UK's security, and that is why I'm here today as part of our partnership abroad that makes us stronger at home. And here alongside foreign ministers from across NATO to affirm our strong support for the people of Ukraine and for the process to secure a just and lasting peace for Ukraine, with security for Europe and security for NATO as well. We have seen in recent days President Trump and the US pursue a just and lasting peace for Ukraine and for the Ukrainian people, and for President Zelensky to pursue their willingness for a ceasefire and for a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. But instead, what we have seen is President Putin simply seek to escalate war, and we've seen over the weekend the continuing strikes, the heavy strikes that have led to power being switched off for hundreds of thousands of people. And that is why today I'm announcing the UK's additional £10 million to support energy infrastructure repairs in Ukraine, because whilst President Putin is seeking to switch the lights off and plunge Ukraine into darkness, we will continue to work to switch the lights back on. And we will continue to show our support for the Ukrainian people, for the sovereignty of Ukraine, and for a just and lasting peace, with the security of Europe and the security of NATO at its heart. Thank you.
From Kosovo, I would like to take one answer for you. I'm Benhari Supi from TV1. We have 2 years from the attack on Bainska, and at the same time 1 year from the Iber Lepans. What is your answer for this? And what is your message to Vucic? Because the Milan Radicic is not arrested, he's still now free in the Belgrade.
So the talks that we will have today, the discussions we will have today, are all very clear that we've seen two presidents are seeking peace, President Trump and President Zelensky. But so far all we have seen from President Putin is an attempt to escalate war. And that is why President Putin should end the bluster and the bloodshed and be ready to come to the table and to support a just and lasting peace for Ukraine and for the security of Europe and the security of NATO. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good morning, all of you. It's early hour. Looking forward today to host the foreign ministers of NATO. Of course, we'll be discussing the historic The Hague summit and to make sure that we implement all the decisions when it comes to someone's phone is ringing. And so to discuss the implementation of that summit, particularly when it comes to defense spending, ramping up to 5% on a credible path. Defense industrial production, we have to do much more. We are doing better, but still a lot to be done. And of course, keeping Ukraine as strong as possible in the fight today, but also to be in the strongest possible position when peace talks really start to happen in a way where this could lead to a result. And then we will also have the NATO-Ukraine Council later today, the lunch, with Andriy Sybiha, the Foreign Minister, and Kaja Kallas, the EU High Representative there, discussing, again, Ukraine. How do we make sure that Ukraine stays as strong as possible? The peace talks are ongoing. That's good, but at the same time we have to make sure that whilst they take place, and we are not sure when they will end, that Ukraine is in the strongest possible position to keep the fight going, to fight back against the Russians, but also in the strongest possible position when peace talks really get to a point where they sit at the table. Having said that, I'm open to a few questions, and then of course we'll see each other later at a full presser after the foreign ministers meeting. Who wants to start? One at a time. Yes.
Yesterday Putin was threatening Europe with war again. So what would be your message for him today after these threats?
I'm not going to react to every thing Putin is saying. We have seen him in military clothes, dressed like a soldier at the front, but not at the front. It was quite far from the front the day before yesterday. So no, I'm not going to react to everything.
New pearl pledges by Norway, the Netherlands, Germany.
Yes, well, that's really great news. So a lot of pledges have come in, and I hope I can make a few announcements later today. Pledges made today. And when you look at the overall numbers, as I said yesterday, we are now at 4 billion. So that means we are really on track for the 1 billion a month, August, September, October, November. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we will reach the 5 billion for the full year. And then for next year, we need for the full year, again, a lot of money, at least 1 billion, maybe even a little bit more than 1 billion a month. It might be around 50, maybe a little bit more for the whole year when it comes to this crucial US gear. So this is offensive and defensive, including interceptors for the air defense systems. Crucial to keep Ukrainian civilians and civilian infrastructure safe. So it is really good that this flow is there, that Europeans are stepping up, and Canada, by the way, also doing a lot here. So really, really glad that this is working.
Sir, let's talk about any of his team about how the talks went in Moscow last night.
Well, as you know, I'm really glad that the US president broke the deadlock with Putin, started this whole peace process. It was only the US, under the leadership of President Trump, who could do this. But I don't want to comment on every step. So last night was, of course, important. There will be more steps, but you will not hear me commenting on every in-between step. We closely coordinate with the Americans what's happening, but not commenting on every step.
What do you make of the rare absence of the US Secretary of State, and do you have the impression that the US are consulting enough with European allies?
Oh, they are absolutely consulting enough. The teams here at NATO and Marco Rubio's team are in constant contact. I myself in constant contact with the Secretary of State. Of course, he is working very hard when it comes to the peace process on Ukraine, but also when it comes to Sudan, Gaza, and all the other issues the Americans are working on. So I find it totally acceptable that he is not here. Chris Lendau is here, the Deputy Secretary. I had dinner with him last night, and he will be really great at the table. So let's not look into more than anything there's there.
How would you comment on corruption?
Bit louder.
Corruption cases and scandals in Ukraine. Kaja Kallas this week said that trust is important, even important during war times, but nothing should tint the European way of Ukraine. So what is your position about it?
No, I mean, I commented before that, of course, when corruption takes place, that it is important, and these corruption cases emerge, that the Ukrainians deal with it. And they are dealing with it. I think the Ukrainian president is taking all the necessary steps to root out corruption.
Please, how to push Russia to compromise something during these peace negotiations? And does these peace negotiations even make sense because Russia doesn't want to compromise anything?
Again, the process is taking place. We had successful meetings in Geneva and in Miami between the American and Ukrainian teams. Last night there was the meeting in Moscow. Again, I'm not going to comment on every step on the way. It's important that the peace process is there. Hopefully it will lead to results. And if it takes too long or it is not leading to results, the best way to put pressure on the Russians is by doing two things. One is making sure that the Russians understand that the weapon flow into Ukraine will keep on going. That's exactly what's happening today, thanks to the US, thanks to the Europeans. US sending its crucial gear to Ukraine, paid for by Canada and European allies, but also Europe and Canada doing a lot bilaterally. And secondly, making sure that the economic sanctions bite, that they are effective. That's also exactly what is happening. The US and Europe working in conjunction to have the maximum impact through sanctions on the Russian economy. That's the best way to change Putin's calculus. And in the meantime, of course, we hope that this will end sooner than later, because as the President of the United States has said, the meat grinder has got to stop, and I agree fully with him. Final question then.
Talking about financing and supporting Ukraine, how important are the Russian frozen assets in context to keep this weapon flow you were talking about going?
Yeah, but what's important is that the weapon flow and all the other support keeps on flowing, including the Danish-Lithuanian initiative of investing in the defense industrial base in Ukraine, including the Czech ammunition initiative, including all the bilateral support going into Ukraine. I commend what the Irish have announced yesterday, so I think this is all important. Of course, Ireland not in NATO, but still supporting Ukraine. Of course, the way to fund it is a debate, and I'm not going into that because this is really up to the EU, and I know the European Union is working hard at solving that issue. So thank you so much, and we'll meet again after all the meetings. Thanks.